Hello, everybody. Ella J here on behalf of SEScoops, and today I am joined by the national treasure, Nick Aldis. Nick, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Ella?
I'm fantastic to see you live in Nashville, Tennessee. Obviously, a lot of history here, too, in the NWA. So I guess starting off, what has been your favorite memories in Nashville? Obviously, you're living out here now. What's your favorite memories in Nashville?
Yeah, the fairgrounds have been pretty good to me. For me, the number one thing for me is always going to be the rematch with Cody and I, because everybody, rightfully so, talks a lot about the match in Chicago. It was very, very special. But what gets overlooked a lot of the time is that 6 weeks later we sold this place out pretty quickly and it was, All In was such a monumental kind of event. It was such a special sort of thing that had been built for so long, and it was from a sort of personal gratification standpoint, it's it's the fairgrounds. It's not a giant. It's not an arena. It's not it's not this giant thing. But to sell it out, and we set a box office record for wrestling at the fairgrounds, and that covers a lot of ground. And it was with All In, you could say, well, it was this, it was that. There was a lot of things involved. It was the event itself. I've never claimed to sell those tickets, but we sold those ones. The ones for Nashville. And we tore the house down. I love the match. I love the way we did it. I love the 2 out of 3 falls. And it was the debut of Camille. Yeah. And obviously she's been able to take. That was legit a one night only plan. To begin with. Well, it wasn't like we said, "Oh, this is it, and you're done." But we didn't have any. There wasn't any sort of concrete. We were kind of let's see how this goes, and if people bite on it, we'll keep going. Because with me, the concern was everyone knows who I'm married to, so are they going to accept, a female character of any sort, even though it was made very clear that it wasn't anything romantic. It was she's a bodyguard, she's a badass, But we were still curious, are people going to accept this? Or are they just going to be no, I can't deal with it. It doesn't make sense. Because imagine that I listen to the people, and that was, that was one of those nights where we went, yeah, you could feel it. You could feel people looking at this new thing and going that's something different. That's got some legs. So, the thing I take the most pride in with the NWA is what I've been able to do in terms of a sort of butterfly effect for everybody around it. There's half a dozen guys now who are getting a regular paycheck, for wrestling, who were not before. I'm not the one paying them. I'm very aware of that, and I'm made aware of that all the time. But it fills me with a lot of pride to think I worked for a year, and I only made what I made on the shows from the promoters themselves, the indies. And off the back of that, we were able to build this brand and reinvigorate it and cultivate this thing that could become an operation, right? An actual wrestling operation. And Camille obviously is she's in many ways, she's sort of my greatest accomplishment, you know what I mean?
Champ for over a year now and still going strong, yeah. And
the guys who I lobbied for to be brought in, who have then been able to get great opportunities with AEW and and so on and so forth. And even before that, guys who I wrestled in title matches that drew really well, who then shortly thereafter were signed to WWE or New Japan or whatever. I'm not saying that it was like that, but maybe it was the last thing that, maybe it was the final sort of piece of the puzzle where they went, oh, main event, he carried him, he was in a main event, and the people were with it, sometimes you just need that last little bit for someone who's scouting you to go okay, yeah, there's something to go there. And if I had any small little part to play with any of those guys, then that's a big deal to me.
And you are definitely a main event guy yourself. Obviously, Camille now has been going strong for the year as the NWA Women's World Champion. Obviously, we're now on the race to the chase coming up at NWA 74. The Women's Invitational is returning, where the winner will go on to face Camille. Now, the competitors in that tournament haven't been in the Invitational, haven't been announced yet, but is there any females today in the industry that you would maybe like to see be a part of it?
Well, I think that I'm a fan of Jennacide, and I think that Jennacide needs an edge. Like, she's an impressive woman, she's an impressive human being, very intelligent, and has a certain aura and star quality about her that I think is more evident behind the scenes than is out there. I understand that because I was in that position for a while, where it was like that I needed the vehicle, and this was it, being put in a position of responsibility, like with the NWA title. It was like all my stuff, my package came together then. Like, I was all through my 20s. I mean, and look, I had a 6-year run at TNA, and I got to wrestle a who's who of Hall of Famers, and won the world title and main evented and
returned, and you just returned to Slammiversary.
Yes, and I was very grateful to do that. But I was still unfinished then. I was still like I hadn't even started to get this yet. I was a kid. I was still in my mid-20s. I was like, most guys, in this business, you don't even really get good until you hit 30, unless you're a savant like AJ Styles or a Shawn Michaels or a Kurt Angle, or so like these sort of savant, like so many guys. It takes a long time. Like Razor Ramon, debuted, and he was 35 in WWF by then, because he'd been all over the place, and you go back and watch some of his early stuff, and you go, ooh, hey, and I'm like, hey, rest in peace, Scott. Like, he was a big help to me, but he was one of those guys that would say to me, yeah, you were the shits, but everyone was the shits to begin with, and then you got good, and like Kev, the same way. He was like, well, you see me when I was the Master Blaster, or Oz, and this and that, and he's like, and I think that's one thing about the business that I hope maybe changes, now with things kind of changing, with the market leader, is that like they go back to understanding that it takes a long time to get good at this, especially nowadays where there aren't as many places you can wrestle all the time. Like I'm fortunate, because when I broke in the business, I wrestled like 6 days a week, for the first year, like on the holiday camps. But then now I'm like, ooh, I'm pretty busy, and I'm going like, because I'm working 2 days this week, 2 days next week, 2 days the week after that, and it's like, that's not. But nowadays, like, oh, look how I'm busy. I've got a heavy schedule.
Busy
like,
and booked.
It's not that, but but compared to how it used to be, it's not busy at all. It's not like the reps. It's like, it takes a long time. But I'm going the long way around to say this, but like, I found myself at like 30, when I started doing this stuff. And for Jennacide, I think that she needs to be put in a situation that's a bit uncomfortable for her to like sink or swim. Like, bring out that last thing, or don't. And so I would like her to, because sometimes it just takes a promoter or a booker to go, all right, here's your chance. You know what I mean? Here's the ball. Like, it's up to you now whether you fumble it or or run it. But it's like, she's the one that springs to mind.
And speaking of running, obviously, to close things out, we're on the race to the chase. We're about a month away at the time of filming this. Well, yeah. So, I mean, you were slated, we'll close things out. You won the race to the chase to face Trevor Murdoch at NWA 74. Obviously, plans have changed them, as announced on Busted Open. Tyrus is now your replacement. So, I mean, what is your reaction?
I just couldn't believe it. Here's the thing. I've got nothing against Tyrus. You know, that's you know, that if you want to do that to the audience, that's up to you. What I couldn't understand was the very vague justification. Like, someone needs to explain to me how, if you own the company, it's yours, and you're hey, we hear it all the time, folks. It's my money, I pay for it, it's my company, blah, mine, me. How can someone be politicking? Like, how has he been the victim of politics? I don't understand that.
I couldn't tell you, Nick.
When you're ruling with an iron fist, and you make every decision based, you know, all the way down to what they have at catering. I don't understand how. I think what happened, so I've been very careful about how I respond, because I'm like, if you just use common sense, you can just see right through it, and because there are certain words that people throw around in wrestling that are like nice trigger words that get the internet all in a flutter and get everyone's, you know, panties all wet. And one of them is politicking, right? So he just threw that word out there, hoping that everyone would go, oh, yep, that must be it. Because when you see a guy who's successful, right, who's been in the main events, and again, more of this is other people saying it, not me. I'm very careful not to say a lot of stuff, but people have said to me, okay, you know, you did this, you did that. Like, you know, when I think of the NWA, I think of you, and I'm very grateful for all of that. But naturally, there comes a time when people start looking like, oh, there must be something, you know, there must be some other reason. It must be, like, I always laughed because in TNA it was like, oh, he's Dixie Carter's favorite, he's Dixie Carter's, you know, thing, and blah, blah, blah. And then when I finished up there and started working with Jeff, it was like, well, he's always been a Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett's always been lobbying for him, you know, he's always had Jeff Jarrett on his side. And it's like, well, if you knew anything about TNA, you would know that Jeff and Dixie were like complete, like, warring factions. So which one is it, you know? And then it's like, when here, and now here it's like, oh, he's politicking. With who? You're the owner. Like, yeah, it's your company.
You literally won and became the number one contender, and then a day or 2 days later, tops, I think it was the day after that it aired, that they named the replacement for Tyrus.
And a massive overreaction to a tweet where and this is, keep in mind that it's the social media team who are constantly telling us, oh, you got to tweet, you got to get engagement, and I said this on Busted Open, engagement. Like, I could post a pic, I said this on Busted Open, right? I could film myself dropping my pants and taking a big steaming shit, and it would get a lot of engagement. You know, a lot of people would be, hey, look at this, you know. We get a hell of a lot of retweets and likes and views. Would it? But does that? Hey, we should put him in the main event. The guy who.
Well, that certainly got engagement. That announcement. Yeah. I'll tell you that.
Well, because wrestling fans love gossip. There's no news like bad news. You know, like no one ever. You know, no one's going to click on a headline that says, "Oh, Nick Aldis and Billy Corgan says Nick Aldis has been a joy to work with for the last 4 years." You know. Like, by the way, name me one main eventer in any promotion who has been a main eventer for more than a year, who hasn't at some point had some sort of difference of opinion with the booker and the promoter. I mean, sorry, it does not exist, folks. Like, your favorites, whoever they may be, you're a keyboard warrior, internet darling guys, they complain, they have an opinion, they go and say this stuff. Y'all don't report it because you don't like to destroy your illusion, but it happens, yeah? It happens to everywhere. If you want to make money, if you want to be someone significant in this line of work, you have to have a fucking opinion sometimes. And I do, and here's the bottom line on it for me. I told this to Billy straight up. I don't think I'm right all the time. I just think I'm right more than I'm wrong. Can you say the same thing? I'm not going to answer that, right? But I sit here and I'm very, very calm about, you know, the future. Like, you know, once you get to a point where it's like, I know I can add value to any company. I can add value to any promotion. And that, who's to say you even need a promotion? Like, you said yourself, you know, here this weekend, next weekend at the Gathering in Charlotte, North Carolina. Very great lineup, by the way. Lots of legends, Hall of Famers, and stars of today and tomorrow. That's always a fun show. Weekend after that, I'm in Irving, Texas. You know, so it's like the people decide. And to all the people around the country, particularly in the South, I love the South, but all over the world who have taken the time to shake my hand over the last 4 or 5 years and thank me for my contributions to the industry, and for many of them bringing back something that was a big part of their family's, you know, tapestry, right? Like a lot of, I mean, I can't tell you how rewarding it is to get someone who says, I used to watch this with my grandfather and it's brought back so many memories, and they've got tears in their eyes, you know, and I'm sitting here going, like, I'm just a guy who puts on tights and wrestles, you know. But to them, they're saying, like, you brought back something that means so much to me and my father and my grandfather, and now I get to share it with my son, you know, or whatever. That's big, man, and that's bigger than any championship or any, you know, main event. And I always say, you know, the people decide. The people will let you know. And I'm very grateful to my fans. And I certainly don't encourage them to not support the, you know, the new main event. But if they choose not to, there's nothing I can do about it, you know, because I'm not going to apologize for being good at my job. I'm not going to apologize for having fans that want to follow stuff that I'm doing.
And you've done so much in your incredible career, obviously former NWA World Champion. And Nick, thank you so much for joining me here today. Obviously, the future is uncertain leading up to the chase and all of that, but it's been a pleasure chatting with you as always. Thank you so much for joining me here live from Starrcast in Nashville.
Ella, thank you so much. Enjoy your day.